right. Good afternoon. I think today is Friday, at least according to my calendar. After we are done with each other, we will have Reem, Abaza, the spokesperson for the President of the General Assembly. She'll be here to brief you, and she's on the same platform, so please do not hang up once I'm done. And just to remember, mute your mics, send out video and audio so we can hear your questions. You will have seen that the Secretary General today released an appeal to address and counter COVID-19 related hate speech. The Secretary General said the virus does not care who we are, where we live, and what we believe, or about any other distinction. And yet the pandemic continues to unleash a tsunami of hate, xenophobia, scapegoating, and scare-mongering. He stressed that we must act now to strengthen the immunity of our societies against this virus of hate. He called on political leaders to show solidarity with all members of their society and build and reinforce social cohesion. The Secretary General also called on educational institutions to focus on digital literacy. He called on media companies to do more to flag and remove harmful content. And he called on civil society to strengthen outreach to vulnerable people and called on religious actors to serve as models of mutual respect. Finally, Mr. Guterres asked every citizen to stand up against hate, to treat each other with dignity, and to take every opportunity to spread kindness. And today, as you may know, is the 40th anniversary of the eradication of smallpox. It is the first and only human disease eradicated on a global scale through the collaboration of countries worldwide. Until it was wiped out, smallpox had plagued humanity for at least 3,000 years, killing nearly 300 million people in the 20th century alone. That's 4 million people annually. Just moments ago, the World Health Organization held a press briefing to commemorate this milestone. Dr. Tedros said that many of the tools used to tackle smallpox are the same tools that were used to fight Ebola and now COVID-19. He added that the World Health Organization is working with partners to develop a vaccine, the tool that ultimately helped eradicate smallpox. Like smallpox, he said COVID-19 is giving us an opportunity to change the trajectory of global health and to build a safer, healthier world for everyone. And the UN Postal Administration unveiled a stamp today to honor the millions of people working together, from world leaders and international organizations to rural doctors and community health workers, to eradicate smallpox. And at 5:30 p.m. this afternoon, we will release a message from the Secretary General for the time of remembrance and reconciliation for those who lost their lives in the Second World War. That will be an occasion to pay tribute to the millions of people who lost their lives during the war and remember their sacrifices. And as you know, this year is the 75th anniversary of the end of the war. And in a statement we issued yesterday, the Secretary General welcomed the formation of a new government of Iraq, led by Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi. The Secretary General expressed his support to the government. He called on for the implementation of meaningful reforms that make tangible improvements in people's lives and strengthens Iraq's democratic institutions. He also reiterated the importance of acting in the interest of all Iraqis through a political process in which women and youth and all of Iraq's diverse communities, including ethnic and religious minorities, can participate actively. That full statement is online. And the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General yesterday afternoon spoke with our resident coordinators who cover 162 countries and territories. As we've been telling you over the past few weeks, resident coordinators are leading the UN team working day and night with governments to flatten the curve and address the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Secretary General underscored the magnitude of the challenge and the critical role of steering UN response on the ground as the virus spreads in the global south. In remarks to them, he stressed that global challenges can only be addressed through cooperation, solidarity, and multilateralism. And I want to flag that at 10 a.m. on Monday, the president of the Economic and Social Council, Ambassador Mona Juul of Norway, is convening a virtual information briefing on joining forces, effective policy solutions for COVID-19 response. ECOSOC will bring the expertise of the wider UN system to discuss policy solutions that countries can use to combat the pandemic, preserve advances made, and get back on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. You can follow that on the UN Web TV page. The Deputy Secretary General, Mina Mohammed, will be there, as well as various heads of UN agencies and the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet. And on a related note, ECOSOC's ad hoc advisory group on Haiti today issued a statement expressing solidarity towards Haiti during the pandemic. The group called on the UN member states and donors and international financial institutions to act together with determination and urgency to prevent and respond to the spread of the COVID-19 and to mitigate its humanitarian and socioeconomic consequences. From the Pacific, two UN resident coordinators, Sanaka Samarsina and Simona Marianescu, who are leading the UN teams covering 14 countries and territories, yesterday launched a $35.3 million COVID-19 response plan. It addressed the immediate needs in education, food security, livelihoods, water, sanitation, nutrition, protection, logistics, as well as emergency telecommunications. Although existing UN resources have been redirected towards the pandemic response, there is still a $19 million funding gap. Although some Pacific countries have confirmed the cases of, although some Pacific countries have no confirmed cases of the virus, their economies are already deeply impacted with a massive slowdown in tourism, imports, exports, and remittances. The government and the United Nations, as well as all our partners, are focusing on a speedy recovery that protects the most vulnerable, especially women and children, as well as jobs and small businesses. An additional Pacific Health Plan led by WHO requires $42 million for procurement, training, medical personnel, and risk communications. These funds will complement resources from the Multi-Partner Trust Fund COVID-19 and Recovery, which you will recall was launched by the Secretary General to address the impacts of highly fragile, climate-vulnerable, tourism-dependent economies. Some of these countries of the Pacific are still recovering from the impacts of the recent cyclone Harold. And in Lebanon, the acting UN resident coordinator, humanitarian coordinator, Claudio Cordone, and as well as our humanitarian partners, launched yesterday the Lebanon Emergency Appeal, requesting $350 million. The appeal will address critical areas of humanitarian intervention to people at risk due to the virus outbreak and its immediate socioeconomic impact. The onset of the pandemic in Lebanon has come at an extraordinarily difficult time, compounding pre-existing vulnerabilities. The outbreak has added pressure on already overburdened and under-resourced national health system. And turning to Syria now, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, expressed today serious concerns about continuing human rights violations and abuses and a sharp rise in killings of civilians in the country. She says the deteriorating situation is a ticking time bomb that must not be ignored. She said that her office is receiving more reports every day of targeted killings and bombings from one end of the country to the other. Many of these attacks are taking place in populated areas. And in Somalia, our colleagues at the UN Refugee Agency today warned that safety and welfare of the country's 2.6 million internally displaced people is being threatened by heavy flooding, conflict, a crippled economy, impending desert locust swarms, and the spread of COVID-19 virus. UNHCR calls for a strong and coordinated response from the international community, national and local Somali authorities, as well as humanitarian actors, to meet the massive humanitarian needs. Earlier this week, UNHCR and the government airlifted emergency supplies, including soap, blankets, sleeping mats, kitchen sets, and plastic sheets to help more than 8,000 people in Baidoa, Badere, and Cordo. A second airlift is set to take place as early as today, with UNHCR's assistance expected to reach a total of 37,000 people, continuing with Somalia, the International Organization of Migration, and warned today that hundreds of migrants are stranded in Bosaso and Puntland due to border and sea crossing closures as a result of the pandemic. Every year, scores of migrants, mainly from landlocked Ethiopia, pass through Bosaso to cross the Gulf of Aden to Yemen, hoping to proceed onwards to Gulf countries. And staying in the region and the Horn of Africa, the International Organization for Migration said the number of internally displaced people there has dropped in the past 6 months. This is largely due to 1.3 million Ethiopians who were uprooted by communal violence in 2019 having returned home. More on this online. And today, our colleagues at the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights said they're deeply concerned about recent reports of failure to assist migrant boats in the central Mediterranean. The central Mediterranean continues to be one of the deadliest migration routes in the world. More on their website. And ending on some good news, delighted to thank our friends in Port Louis, Mauritius, for their payment in full to the UN's regular budget. So far, 89 member states have paid in full for 2020 and all previous years. That's it for me. I will take your questions before turning it over to Reem. All right, let's see what the postman says. Hold on a second. I need to... James Bays.
Thank you, Stephane. 2 questions. I'll do them one by one, if that's okay by you. First, you're aware that it's now nearly 7 weeks since the Secretary-General's call for a ceasefire, and ever since then, the Security Council has been wrangling over a resolution. You're probably aware there's this new version of the resolution which has compromised language, replacing the mention of the World Health Organization with a general reference to specialized health agencies, a resolution that was under silence procedure until 2 p.m. Russia's asked for more time, but it's also now reported that even though US negotiators agreed with this wording higher up in Washington, they've now objected to it. So how frustrated is the Secretary General, and is he going to pick up the phone to President Trump or Secretary Pompeo?
The Secretary General is, of course, awaiting a final decision from the Security Council. As you know, Security Council members are sovereign states involved right now in deliberations on a resolution. We, of course, have been saying, and the Secretary General and myself, that a strong voice from the Security Council is something I think that the world awaits. These are penultimate negotiations. Member states are involved. Let's see what happens. And the Secretary General has been in touch with many member states over the last few weeks on this issue. Your second
question. Yeah. Second question.
Go ahead.
A meeting we saw today from Estonia was very impressive and slick in their video presentation. Really, I think, showed up the UN and its very poor video conferencing. We're now 7 weeks into this. We might be in it for months. Isn't it time for the UN now to stick up its hand, say we need money, we need expertise to sort out our virtual communications, because they really are stuck in the dark ages?
Well, I'm not. I'm sure we're way better than the Dark Ages, because I'm not sure we would have had any communications in the Dark Ages. We are working with all the equipment that's been budgeted for us by member states. There is obviously a need for greater investment, and I think no one more than the Secretary General is aware of that. Let's see who goes after Mr. Bays. Majid. Majid? All right. We'll come back to Majid Abdelhamid.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Majid.
Oh, thank you very much. My question is about Iraq. I saw the statement of Secretary General and you just read it. I have 2 questions about that. The first one is, given how the core of Iraq's problem, I think everybody agrees, is mainly due to corruption. What is the Secretary General's message to the new Prime Minister, which there is so high hope for his government now with regard to tackling the issue of corruption in Iraq? And my second question is, I emailed you earlier about, is now there is a new crisis between the federal government and the Kurdistan regional government. Basically, the federal government is cutting the salary of its Kurdish employers for what the Kurdistan regional government is saying it's due to political reason. They are using the the salary issue as a way to basically punish the region. What is the where does Secretary General stand on this?
I don't have any specific information on your last point on the salary issue. We do hope that these issues between the central government and the Kurdistan region are resolved, but we'll see if we can get you a bit more. I think that the Secretary General's message to the new Iraqi Prime Minister is pretty simple, that there should be meaningful reforms that make tangible improvements in people's lives and strengthen democratic institutions. I think that, to me, that very much covers the issue you were raising. Edie?
Can I ask my question now?
Sure, Abdelhamid, go ahead.
Thank you, Stephane. Yesterday, shelling of the Turkish embassy in Tripoli and the Italian also embassy took place, and 3 people were killed near the Turkish embassy. Is the Secretary General going to issue an official statement condemning this attack on 2 embassies in Tripoli?
Look, we're very concerned about the ongoing violence, the shelling of civilian areas. This is something we have condemned, and we will continue to condemn. I have no particular information if those embassies were specifically targeted, but obviously diplomatic missions need to be protected. Our focus and our continued call is on people to stop harming civilians and to return to the political process. Iftikhar had a question about an update on number of UN numbers in terms of COVID-19, and he mentions the name of a person who would have died. Iftikhar, I don't want to go into names because it's not information that I have and I want to share or confirm. What I can tell you, there are a total of 413 cases of people who've tested COVID positive in the UN system. 55 of those are in New York, and we've had 1 death of a UNDP, of someone who was working under a UNDP consultant's contract here in New York, who passed away this week. Edie. Edie?
Thank you very much, Steph. I'm here. Thank you. And happy almost weekend to everybody. 2 questions. First, there's been some upsurge in fighting in Yemen, and I wonder what Martin Griffiths is doing to try and get both sides back on track. And secondly, you said that there are now 89 countries that have paid their regular dues. How does that compare to this time last year?
That I have to get back to you right after the briefing on the comparison, because I don't have that number with me, but maybe if Jane's listening, she'll give me that number. Your first question on Yemen, sorry, Mr. Griffiths is continuing his phone and video work, putting pressure as much as pressure can be borne on the parties, on those who have an influence to the parties. I think the continued violence that we're seeing, especially in light of the threat of the COVID virus, is yet another reason of why all those who hold the power, all those who have their fingers on triggers, need to go back to the negotiating table to hammer out the political solution as set forth. Evelyn.
Thank you, Steph. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. I was listening to the ARIA formula this morning, and it turned out to be a debate over the Cold War rather than really drawing lessons from World War II. Does the Secretary General intend to speak to this group or not?
No, I think the Secretary General's statement to commemorate the victims of the Second World War will be pretty clear, and it will be issued. It will be issued this afternoon at 5:30. And I think I had another question. So, and I was told the UNDP. The UNDP contractor in New York passed away on 29 April. Joe Klein had a question. Does the Secretary General include with his definition scapegoating in his global appeal against COVID-19, the attitude of the attribution of the origin to China, labeling the China virus just as Ebola takes its name from the Ebola River, where it was first identified? I think the Secretary General's message is for everyone to treat everyone with respect and not use words that will encourage or entice not only hate speech but violence against others. All right. Anything from Florencia? No, I think if you hold on 2 seconds, I think Jane is giving me that information. Okay. This is what live television is all about. Bear with me 2 seconds, and that way, Evelyn, you can have your answer. Okay, by the just in terms of the comparison, the data that we have, Edie, is the end of April. So by the end of April in 2019, 89 member states had paid. At the end of April this year, 87 member states had paid. So we'll keep you posted on those statistics. All right, thank you all. Don't go away. You need to hear from Reem. So Reem, all yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Steph, and good afternoon, everyone. The president of, I just want to make sure. Okay. Thank you so much, Steph. Good afternoon, everyone. The president of the UN General Assembly, Tijani Mohammed Bande, is holding a virtual town hall meeting for member states now to discuss alternative mechanisms to hold elections without plenary meetings and how the Assembly can decisively proceed with the elections scheduled in June 2020. The meeting, which started at 10, included a presentation by the Undersecretary General for General Assembly and Conference Management. As you know, the General Assembly is scheduled to hold 4 elections in June. Those are for non-permanent members of the Security Council, members of the Economic and Social Council, the President of the 75th session of the General Assembly, and the Vice Presidents of the 75th session. In light of the recent medical guidance received from the United Nations Medical Director regarding the ongoing measures to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 and safeguard the health of everyone, it is clear that current restrictions on holding in-person meetings will be maintained until June 30th. In a letter submitted to member states, the President of the General Assembly said, as several important electoral processes are scheduled to be held in June, it is crucial that we find novel means of ensuring the business continuity of the Assembly. For elections requiring secret ballots, the non-paper prepared by the UN Secretariat includes options for member states to cast ballots at a specific venue or by electronic means. And all details about the options are available on the PGA's website, and I will include a direct link in the briefings that will be posted online as well. In a letter submitted to member states, the PGA announced that he will organize a virtual event in June to launch an Alliance for Poverty Eradication. The Alliance will serve as a forum for member states to, among other things, raise awareness about the danger that poverty poses to world peace, human rights, and sustainable development, and to galvanize member states, the international community, and other stakeholders to support actions geared towards poverty eradication. You'll find more details on the website, including the concept note. And earlier in the week, the PGA participated in the high-level contact group meeting of the heads of state and government of the non-aligned movement. He said, in the face of mounting challenges, we are reminded of the importance of the multilateral alliances, which have, from the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic, coordinated the global response. He added, we must continue to support WHO and one another to overcome this challenge and prevent future pandemics. On education, the PGA said that with over 90% of the world's students affected by school closures, we must coordinate effectively and support each other to ensure that students around the world have access to quality education through remote learning. The PGA added that while it has been easier for developed countries to transit to remote learning, many governments around the world have found it difficult or impossible due to issues of internet penetration, lack of necessary software, and other factors. He cautioned against allowing this pandemic to widen the educational gap that already exists. And called on everyone to make cooperation a key element in the education sector. For next week, the President of the General Assembly, Tijani Mohammed Bandi, will be participating at a high-level conference on the role of religious leaders in addressing the challenges of COVID-19, organized by the Kingdom of Morocco on May 12th at 10 a.m., and we will share the remarks then, of course. The intergovernmental negotiations on the declaration for the commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations are going on using virtual platforms. The co-facilitators, the permanent representatives of Qatar and Sweden, will organize a virtual town hall meeting with young representatives from youth organizations and networks from all regions of the world on Wednesday from 9 to 10:30 a.m. The meeting will serve as a platform for young people to provide input to the Zero Draft Declaration of the co-facilitators. The Secretary General's envoy on youth will moderate the meeting, and member states are welcome to participate as observers. The two co-facilitators have recently shared with member states a paper to serve as the basis of the declaration. They are particularly interested in young people's feedback and perspectives. That's why the Office of the SG's Envoy on Youth, in collaboration with the Major Group for Children and Youth and the International Coordination Meeting for Youth Organizations, created a survey which is now available online. I will add a direct link to the survey in the briefing notes as well. And young people's responses to this survey will serve as a valuable input to the town hall meeting on Wednesday. The deadline for participating in the survey is Sunday, May 10. On our website and social media, we have the link to the town hall meeting as well. And with this, I'm open for any questions, please. And thank you so much, Florencia, for forwarding any questions if there are any. Okay, Abdelhamid, please.
Thank you, Reem. I have two questions. First, I want to ask if the PGA had been in contact in any way with the Palestinian Authority and to see how the pandemic is affecting especially the people in Gaza who are under siege for the last 13 years. And the second, you said you're going to come back to us about a date that the President of the General Assembly will meet us in a press conference. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. for the press conference, as I said last time, of course, this is on our mind, and the PGA is looking forward for this, maybe sometime in June, because right now there are a lot of logistics are being finalized for elections and for other procedures for business continuity and the GA, but for sure, we will announce it when it's finalized. And for your question, of course, the UN has a strong presence in Gaza. So the PGA is available to support in any way that is needed. But the UN already is there, UNRWA is there, and if there is any need for the PGA to be involved in anything, his doors are open, and he is willing anytime to be involved in any efforts to alleviate suffering in any place of the world. And Melissa?
Thank you.
Melissa Kent?
Hi, thanks very much, Reem. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, the virtual town hall that's taking place today, can you give me an idea of the options that are on the table that are being explored as far as the Security Council elections? And in the document that was distributed to member states, the e-ballot option seems to have been taken off the table before it even can be considered, in the sense that it says that it would take at least a month and a half to get the system up and running, meaning it wouldn't be ready in time for a June 17th Security Council vote. So my other question is also, how quickly does the PGA need to make a decision on the way forward to hold secret ballots during a pandemic?
Actually, the town hall meeting that is still going on right now is for discussing all options that the Secretariat, DGACM, has prepared as options for holding the elections. And one of them, of course, is the options for elections requiring secret ballots. And for this, that's for the Security Council, your question, of course, the Security Council elections will require secret ballots. And these, we have two options. Casting of ballots at a specific venue, announced prior, of course, of the election. Or like member states will go physically and cast their ballots, or the other option is e-ballot. And this option is not off the table, but the Secretariat mentioned that it will take time. So it's up to member states to decide if they prefer this option, so time will be given. If they prefer casting the ballot at physically at a specific venue, this option then, the other will be taken off the table. And for timing, of course, all of these, we still have time until the June 17th date. So that's why the PGA has held a virtual meeting with the chairs of the regional groups last week, and then today with all membership to accelerate the process of consulting, because anything has to be in consultation with member states and with their agreement. So these discussions are going on fast, so we can make sure that we have something concrete very soon. But we're not trying to rush member states also to decide, but I think we have time. We have time to, if the member states decided to go on the casting the ballots, we have time to finalize all procedures and have the elections on time. Okay.
Quick follow-up question.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, at what level? Is it at mostly at the ambassador level that this virtual town hall is taking place? And we also heard that there were additional security measures for this virtual town hall. Can you give me an idea of what those additional security measures were, please?
What do you mean, security for the town hall, a virtual town hall? Security measures?
Yeah, we were told that there were some extra security measures for this town hall. I'm not sure what that means. If
not extra security measures. Not extra security measures for the town hall. It's just a meeting closed for member states, and that's it. So there were no extra measures.
And at what level is the participation? Is it mostly
permanent representatives? Permanent representatives, yes. Okay, I'm told by Florencia that there are no other questions. Thank you so much, Florencia. And thank you so much, everyone. No other questions? Thank you and have a nice weekend.